Terrible. Nowadays, I think I want to mention the sense of sort of sense of concern of others' well-being. There are two levels. One level, almost biological factor. So that is your friend or someone very positive towards you. Then some kind of sense of concern usually comes. That animal also have biological factor. Because for your survival, they need cigarette. Like for children's survival, need mother. Mother sort of, I think, biologically, you should take special care about children. That kind of compassion is very much mixed with attachment. So, attachment we consider something destructive because too much attachment. With that, hate also come together. Today, very much sort of love, and including sexual love. And after a few days, a few months, few years, opposite, hate. So that's not come from training, biological factor. And also very much mixed with attachment. So that is not good. Now, genuine sort of compassion is irrespective of the other's attitude towards you. For example, oneself loves oneself. Not the reason I'm very kind to myself. No. I want happy life. I don't want suffering. So on that basis, you develop sense of concern of yourself. So the limitless centered being, everyone wants happy life, do not want suffering. On that level, develop sense of concern, regardless their attitude towards you. So that is genuine sort of compassion which we are talking. The first compassion, biologically developed, spontaneous. Second level of compassion through training. Animal cannot do. So training means use our intelligence. Thinking, pros and cons, pros and cons. That kind of compassionate sort of attitude. What value? Tremendous benefit to yourself. And that immediately brings peaceful mind. That brings healthy body. And also, you see, I wrote, you see, that also, you see, bring more smile. Smile bring more friend. That not friend of money, not friend of power, and in some extent, not friend of knowledge. Professor. Some professors have more friend because of that person is a great professor. So like that, you see, that kind of compassion not depend on their attitude. Therefore, your enemy also, you see, really deserve our compassion. They also want happiness to run suffering. And particularly, you see, enemy side, you may have additional reason they are committing some negative work, negative karma. So you have some special, more you understand the negativeness or harmfulness about anger, hatred, suspicion, then your enemy see, actually, deliberately, because of that, practice these things, or just let come these things. So there is sufficient reason to feel sense of concern. So that kind of compassion, not by biological factor, but through training, use our intelligence. So that is what we used to call analytical meditation. Think. So that brings immense benefit because, on the other hand, self-centered attitude is the key sort of factor to develop fear, anger, hatred, all these negative sort of emotions, very much based on self-centered sort of attitude, me, like that. So therefore, say, analyze what is valuable, what is harmful, and then through that way, you see, you deliberately make closer these positive emotions. Then familiarize, as I think you know, that Tujungshiro, Samjungshiro, Kumjungshiro.
So it's like the wisdom and the knowledge comes from learning or hearing, then from reflecting in depth, and finally from integrating to practice and meditation or sort of experience, integrating in one's mind stream.
So first level, just knowledge, not much effect. And also may change. Someone else say something different. Then you may think, oh, that may be true. The second level, you yourself seriously analyze these things. So you develop some kind of conviction. Then someone say, this is wrong. Then whether you respond or not, in your mind feel, oh, no, he's wrong. His or her, his or her, wrong. I analyze. So, number one reason, number two reason, A, B, C, D, like that. So that's the conviction. That conviction then brings third level of knowledge or awareness. That's familiarize. Then the real feeling develop. So analytical meditation is very, very essential. Like that. The previous compassion is biased. The second level compassion is unbiased. Also, I think there is differences. The genuine compassion must combine with awareness or shirocha.
Kind of wisdom or awareness or discriminating discernment.
So, shirocha taught the jebe tane, tabena dunge tongni, achi ta khanra dunge de mena sabe nyingji tsam chashtoa. Ta dine dunge di du khanra dine chunga, di samdani, dunge di deru yinba tongne, ta dunge di le tartu bachi yugi la dunge ki shangwane chindebe di, ta mikse ga nyingji chashtoa. So, azu shung narali ya, drandu ki nyingji da, gyomdu ki nyingji satire.
So within the compassion, there's one aspect of compassion where you see someone suffering and feel sorry for that. And on the other hand, you also see someone suffering, but you also see the fact that that suffering can be overcome. And while it can be, it's something that can be overcome, I mean, the person is still suffering, and you feel
Cause and effect. Analyze the cause. Cause, analyze, sure.
And so you analyze that suffering comes from causes and conditions, and that can be overcome. And there is then the sense of wanting to free the person from that kind of suffering. So mere suffering, and then there's this sense of wanting
mere wish to overcome suffering, without knowing the real sorrow, the possibility to overcome suffering. So that's more or less wishful thinking. Then another, you see, that cause of that suffering can overcome.
No,
Can be overcome. Then, you see, you develop some kind of serious sense of concern of their suffering. I think oneself, already you know the causes of that physical illness. Then there is a real possibility to eliminate that cause. Then the more desire, take medicine or exercise these things. The illness cannot cure. Then, although you have some wish, but not much enthusiasm. Similar, like that. So, wisdom side is very, very important. Very important. So, as far as Buddhism is concerned, I think emphasis more on wisdom side.
On the intellectual reasoning side.
Understanding.
Understanding,
yeah. Yala tamje dombe shirub tantu sungshatwa. Yala tamje dombe ningji tantu sungde chogurwa. Ire sungmundowa.
So in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, it says all these other branches of teachings were given by the Buddha, taught by the Buddha in order to develop wisdom.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Now, Matthieu, we know we will have some illustrations. Matthieu is also a great photographer.
Oh, really?
And he's
and very strict vegetarian.
And he will, as a great spiritual man and artist, tackle with the question too, and compassion and empathy. Matthieu.
Thank you. So, Your Holiness, about the distinction between empathy and compassion that Tanya explained very beautifully in scientific terms. To relate to what Your Holiness is often saying about that, you often speak of the courage that comes with compassion.
Yes.
So, empathy is usually considered as the effect that the feeling of others have on you. So, if it's joy, then you feel more joyful. But imagine you resonate with the suffering of others. So it creates suffering in you. Another person suffering, another person suffering. So because it is oriented, self-oriented, then suffering piles up. So it becomes, actually your courage sort of crumbles. So you fall into emotional, what they call emotional exhaustion, empathic distress, burnout, and just to to know that 60% of all nurses, doctors in USA are or will suffer of burnout. So there is a big problem. Now, why compassionate courage? Because compassion, as Tanya said, is basically loving kindness oriented toward others and dealing with the suffering of others. And the more they suffer, because it is others-oriented, the more your courage and determination to do something increase. So it's not something that burdens you. Like the doctor on the battlefield is not going to cry the moment he sees one wounded person, then that will not work. So more suffering, more courage, that bodhisattva ideal. So that's why it's a big difference. And the work of Tanya have shown that it is different in the brain. So unless you train specifically for this compassion, then the nurses will never get this strength of mind to deal again and again with suffering. So that's why it seems so important. But in general also, as Tanya has shown, by practicing specifically loving kindness, Maitri, that's what she was training mostly, and compassion, it increased the prosocial behavior. And prosocial behavior and quality of human relationship is based on that, a mutual exchange, and not only human beings, animals also have this kind of idea. And so, but not always, sometimes animals a little bit better than humans, it happens. So they sometimes treat their kids a little bit better. Well, there are some exceptions. But human beings love to cooperate. And that comes from prosocial behavior. There's a great joy in cooperating. Animals do cooperate as well. So, this is not new. Throughout evolution, those things came, but of course they became a much bigger magnitude in human beings. Now, of course, people always speak of competition, the struggle for life. There's competition. In that case, the bird is the winner. But, but the recent studies in evolution have shown that cooperation has been much more creative to bring complex organization, like bees and ants. And human beings are super cooperators by nature. A city would not function without constant cooperation, whether we know it or not. And people can do heroic acts also out of genuine disinterested altruism. This guy is not going to think for half an hour, should I give my hand or not, without hesitation. But animal can do that too. This mouse certainly it's not easy to hold his friends, so I don't know what happens after that. But basically, this thing is present in our gene at different levels. There are people during the Second World War. This is a couple of pastors in France who saved thousands of Jewish people with the whole village. They brought them to Switzerland over a long time at great risk. They put their life at the risk of others. So now, is it somehow, as you often said, and you said again in Brussels, because we have these predispositions toward kindness and altruism, we love better people who are altruistic. Of course, we know we have possibility for hatred, for anger, for doing terrible things, but basically, as you mentioned in Brussels, even young children have this natural inclination that they prefer people who behave well. So this is a small piece taken from Paul Bloom's research in Harvard, in Yale, showing that. Well, can you send the movie here?
Ici, un chien blanc essaie d'ouvrir une boîte emplie de jouets.
So there's one puppet
Ethan,
that is trying
6
to
mois,
open the box.
est captivé.
And the baby is watching. So it doesn't succeed. So the other
Le
puppet
chien
comes
bleu
and helps.
apporte son aide, c'est le bon garçon.
Now,
En
trying to
revanche,
go again to
le
open
chien
the
jaune ne
box.
se comporte pas très bien.
Children watch. Now comes the bad guy. No, you can't open the box. After that, you show both the nice
Une
puppet
étudiante du laboratoire, qui ne
and
sait
the
pas lequel des
unkind
deux
puppet
chiens c'est bien ou
to
mal
the baby.
comporté, demande à Ethan de faire un choix.
Which one do you like?
95% of baby take the nice behaving puppet. And even 3 months baby, they can't catch, but you look at where they look, 95%. So there is some kind of predispositions towards appreciating people who behave well, not towards you, but even to each other. So we need that in the medical world to overcome this kind of burnout. And when we see suffering again and again and again and again, not only nurses, but social workers, people who work in the humanitarian world, if they only function with empathy, then they burn out. So you see, this is what happens to nurses. There's too much. So they need this compassion and loving kindness training, both through the meta-analysis, also to taking perspective have to go together, the wisdom and the compassion aspect. So in our life, obviously we have many challenges. Our friends can be our mind can be our best friend, like my teacher, Kangyur Rinpoche, or our mind can be our worst enemy. We talk of depression. 10 to 15% of aged people have suffering from depression. So we have also a social problem, poverty even in the midst of richness and plenty. So we have we instrumentalize other species. So we think they're just there for making of our own use. We can do anything we want, even for pleasure, like bullfights. So now, why is altruism and compassion so important for society? And if we can develop it through different methods, as Tanya's study and many others have studied, Antoine is studying that too, it is a win-win situation. Altruism is the most satisfying state of mind. As you often say, very smart, selfish people will cultivate altruism because in the end, this is also the most rewarding state of mind. me all day long, as Your Holiness says, makes you miserable and you make everyone miserable around. It's a lose-lose situation. Not only that, but the wisdom aspect. Compassion and altruism is attuned to reality, to interdependence, that we all are basic sentience and basic humanity. If we think I'm alone in this world and the others can do what they want to get happy, but it's not my job, it doesn't work because you imagine that you are a small autonomous entity. So the wisdom aspect is also missing. But altruism has both this very satisfying component and also the understanding of interdependence. So now, what will lead in the world to more caring economics? Economy at the service of society, not the opposite. In the midterm, more social justice, the pursuit of happiness, long-term, caring for future generations, which is very difficult because they are not here, and caring for 8 million other species and the environment. So that comes from this concept of care, altruism, compassion. So Francisco also started, we are going to have a symposium in his honor after Your Holiness leave. He started this notion that we could work together, neuroscientists and meditators, to study the effect of this mental training on the brain. So again, disciples of teachers like the Gokenzé Rinpoche went to the lab, like Antoine showed us. So Rinpoche studied, many of those masters, like Mingyur Rinpoche, they also participated, and not only as guinea pig, like me, I know nothing more than a guinea pig, but they can also help the scientists to understand better, interpret the result of their findings. Now, Richie Davidson, your friend Richie Davidson, also trying that with 4 or 5 years old preschoolers. Can a kindness curriculum make a difference? And what he found is after 10 weeks, there's a sharp increase in pro-social behavior, just kindness, gratitude, working together, compared to other children who didn't do that curriculum. Very simple. The children enjoy that. And this is also another factor that will help reduce, in the last few days, so many journalists ask you, oh, violence is increasing all over the place. What shall we do? Well, the good news is thanks to the rise somehow of human rights, of respect of the others, contrary to what we see every day in the media, over the last 5 centuries, violence has been declining steadily. If you see the number of murders in Oxford in 1350, there was 100 murders per year for 100,000 people. Now there's 1. It has gone 100 times down. Similarly, the abuse of children has gone half in the United States over 20 years. So globally, even there are terrible things happening always somewhere in the world, globally, the tendency is towards what Your Holiness say, a century of peace, a century of dialogue, somehow is coming in the culture. Even the number of average casualty, death per conflict or per war, it has gone from 60,000 in 1950 after World War II to about 1,000 now. Of course, there are terrible things like in Iraq, in Sudan, in Syria, but if you take the whole world, not only what the TV show you, in general, there's a strong decrease. This is a book that has been researched, a scientific book about the decline of violence. So we need to enhance cooperation in the school, less competition. We spoke about depression and suicide. Many young people commit suicide because they fail in their study, which is stupid. They can do many other things in life. So enhance cooperative rather than competition, sustainable harmony with our environment, more caring economics. We really use economy for the well-being of people. We need local commitment. Everyone can make a difference, and sense of universal responsibility, which Your Holiness is always advocating. And then we need to extend our altruism to 8 other million species. They are co-citizens in this world. They're not just here to please us, entertain us, or whatever. And we need the compassionate courage. We need to dare to say that altruism is not just a nice, sweet, utopian idea. It's the most pragmatic way to deal with the times, the problem of this modern world. So as Martin Luther King said, every man and woman, of course, must decide whether he or she will walk in the light of creative altruism or in the darkness of destructive selfishness. So there are a few books that for those who are interested, and from Tubden Jimba, your translator. And then thank you so much, Your Holiness, for your attention.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. 영시 말해. 영시로.
Do you want to answer to Matthieu?
100% agree.
What a relief.